Some of the more positive steps that have happened with the government, they've recently developed the General Education Strategic Plan, which is a 5-year plan, 2012 to 2017, outlining their aims and objectives for education and educational achievement in South Sudan. It's aspirational. Some may criticise, but I feel it's important to be aspirational to aim to halve illiteracy by 2017. And to demonstrate the commitment, the government have increased their commitment in funding for education from 6% to 10% of the national budget, which was enshrined in law under the Education Act earlier this year. Now that the General Education Strategic Plan is in place, the country's been allocated GPE funding, Global Programme for Education funding, which is another good sign of UN and donor investment and confidence in the government's attitude to education here. To address some of the issues around textbooks and learning teaching materials, DFID funded the production and distribution of 9 million textbooks. That's textbooks for every child in South Sudan, and that distribution is ongoing as we speak. And US, through USAID, have recently committed $105 million for their Safer Schools South Sudan Systems initiative, 5S initiative, which is aiming to target the most underserved populations across the northern states in South Sudan. And if you look at the teacher training that's been delivered, many of it's delivered by NGOs, and it's a way for smart young people to get a qualification, easier than perhaps going through a professional qualification or many other qualifications that aren't really established in South Sudan. So people get a teaching qualification. Once they have that, they've demonstrated some professional competence. They very often then leave the profession. The pay here is not competitive when you compare it to UN, to NGO, even to local government pay, which is where many of these teachers will go. So a real challenge that we're facing is the level of pay that teachers receive. Now the government's committed to increase the teachers' pay and increase the incentives that teachers get, but with the austerity measures in place, that hasn't been able to be realised as yet. So something that the donor community is addressing, and something that all NGOs and international presences need to work on through advocacy, is supporting the government to raise the level of teachers' pay, to improve professionalism and improve retention in qualified teachers. There's a real need for some standardisation in the school terms, in the examinations, in a qualification framework, which will indicate pathways and progression for learners, particularly learners who are on accelerated programs, who are desperate to get into economic activity or vocational training. All this needs to be tightened up, and there's a lot of work being done at a national level through the National Education Forum, which is supported by UNESCO, which is aiming to support the coordination of education actors in South Sudan. We really need to start looking at the quality as well, the quality of programs that are being delivered. Because for many of us here working in education, we're not setting up our own schools, we're not delivering our own curriculum. It's about supporting, strengthening and making sustainable the government systems that are there. And so we're doing that through some tangible inputs like textbooks, like school buildings, like desks and benches. Where we've got those in schools, we're all ready to start looking at the actual quality of delivery. Because again, that will help improve retention of learners and retention of teachers.